Imagine you're in a live aviation operation. You're sitting there monitoring the instruments, and the radio suddenly cracks open.
Right, or by pressure.
Exactly. Air traffic control messages you. They request an immediate ASDA check, and they ask you to confirm your AOC compliance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the runway is approaching, the weather is degrading. What do you do?
I mean, the margin for error in that specific moment is just zero. It's a completely binary situation.
Yeah.
You either know the exact mathematical and legal boundaries of those terms, or you're compromising the airspace. There's just no time to consult a manual or ask for clarification.
And that uncompromising reality is exactly where we're starting this deep dive today. So welcome in.
Glad to be here.
We have a really highly unusual stack of sources for you today. It reveals two completely different but fundamentally intertwined layers of ultimate precision.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is. Our first source is a literal aviation training script. Just a meticulous breakdown of the rigid abbreviations and codes that keep commercial aircraft from, well, falling out of the sky.
Right, but the second layer is what takes this into totally uncharted territory. We also have an internal master blueprint from an organization called Nisam Aviation Academy.
Right, the system prompt.
Exactly. It's a 2026 system prompt, a massive, highly detailed rulebook dictating exactly how an artificial intelligence must produce the educational content that teaches these very aviation codes to pilots.
So our mission today is to look at both of these systems. We're exploring the life or death language of aviation and, mirroring it against the algorithmically optimized way this AI is programmed to teach that language to human beings.
It's essentially looking at the code behind the matrix, while the matrix is actively teaching you how to fly.
I love that analogy. And to understand how the AI is teaching, we first really have to understand the sheer density of what it's teaching.
Oh, absolutely. The training script we're looking at deals with the absolute lexicon of survival. It's this dense alphabet soup of acronyms that literally form the boundaries of flight.
Let's take the one from that opening scenario, ASDA, which stands for Accelerate Stop Distance Available.
Right. And to someone outside the industry, ASDA sounds like, I don't know, a static measurement.
Yeah, you'd assume it's just a number printed on a map telling you how long the runway pavement is.
Exactly. But the documentation shows it's actually a living, breathing equation. It forces pilots to calculate ever-changing variables before every single takeoff.
Because, think about the physics involved. You are hurtling down a runway in a machine weighing hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yeah, it's massive.
And ASDA defines the exact amount of distance you have available to accelerate to your critical decision speed.
Which is known as V1.
Right, V1. And then say you experience a catastrophic failure, like an engine blowout at that speed, you still need to possess enough physical space to slam on the brakes and come to a complete safe stop.
Without skidding off into a ditch.
Exactly. And the calculation has to factor in, tire wear, the wetness of the pavement, the density of the air on that specific afternoon.
So it's not a safety net that's just inherently there. It's a safety net the pilot has to mathematically weave themselves before they even push the throttle.
Yes. Because if your ASDA calculation fails to account for, say, a wet runway and that engine blows,
The pavement just simply runs out.
it runs out. And that leads directly to the next critical boundary we saw in the sources, the AOC, or Air Operator Certificate.
Right, so while ASDA represents the physical boundary of the aircraft, the AOC represents the legal boundary of the airline itself.
Without an active, compliant AOC, an airline just does not legally exist.
No, they can't sell a ticket. They certainly cannot put a plane in the air.
But I want to look at the human boundary for a second, because the source material brings up the AME, the Aviation Medical Examiner.
Oh, yeah, the gatekeeper.
Exactly. The way the script describes the AME, it's far more intense than a standard yearly physical.
Oh, totally. The AME isn't just checking your cholesterol. It is conducting a structural stress test for the human component of the airplane.
Right, like an aeronautical engineer inspecting the metal fatigue of a wing, the AME is inspecting the biological fatigue of the pilot.
And that biological stress test is non-negotiable. The script explicitly states that without that medical clearance, there is simply no flight.
You could know your ASDA calculations flawlessly, but if the AME revokes your clearance...
You're permanently grounded.
Go.
Done.
But, okay, let's assume the pilot passes the medical, the airline has the AOC, the ASDA is calculated perfectly.
It's good to go.
Right. Once the aircraft pushes back from the gate, the survival of that flight relies entirely on how information is passed back and forth.
And the sources highlight two distinct information flows that pilots have to manage simultaneously here.
Yeah, first is the AIS, the Aeronautical Information Service. This is basically the ground talking to the aircraft.
Right, the AIS feeds the pilots all the charts, the NOTAMs, the hazard warnings, all before the engines even start.
But the reverse flow is just as vital, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's the ARFP, the air report.
So when a plane is at cruise altitude and hits, like, an unexpected pocket of severe, clear air turbulence, the pilot issues an AREP.
They become a real-time sensor.
Yeah.
They're feeding that data back into the system so the aircraft trailing 30 miles behind them can alter course.
It's just a continuous feedback loop.
Exactly. And as they alter that course, they're likely relying on ARN, or area navigation.
Which the training material notes was a massive paradigm shift.
Huge. It allows an aircraft to calculate and fly any desired path through the sky, rather than just ping-ponging blindly between physical, ground-based radio beacons.
It completely opened up the airspace.
But, opening up the airspace exponentially increases the cognitive load on the controllers managing it.
Right, because when you have 50 heavy jets navigating their own ARN path through a thunderstorm,
You cannot have ambiguous communication. And this explains the overarching why behind this rigid acronym structure.
right, in a high-stress, high-volume air traffic control handoff, using a standardized term like ASDA instead of saying, how much runway do we have left to stop, cuts through the radio static.
It cuts through the panic.
And it eliminates the danger of translation errors between pilots of different native languages, too.
Completely. Misunderstanding a phrase in that environment doesn't just mean a failed written test. It results in cascaded failures and a compromised airspace.
Which brings us to the ultimate authority governing all of this, the ANO, or Air Navigation Order.
Right, the big rule book.
The ANO is the uncompromising legal framework that defines every rule, responsibility, and operational limit of the sky.
Yeah.
We've established that aviation requires this strict, universally understood framework to function. But what happens when you apply that exact same level of uncompromising regulation to the digital creation of content?
Well, you get the Nisam Aviation Academy's Master System prompt.
Yes, our second source. And this document is essentially the ANO for artificial intelligence.
It really is. It acts as an incredibly detailed rulebook dictating how an AI must generate the educational content teaching the aviation codes we literally just discussed.
The prompt defines the AI's core identity immediately. It says it is the official content production studio.
Every single output must be broadcast quality, technically accurate, legally compliant, and of course, algorithmically optimized.
The technical constraints placed on the AI are just staggering. It mandates what the prompt calls phonetic perfection.
Oh, this part was wild.
Yes.
Before the AI writes a single line of script, it's commanded to research standard ICAO.
The International Civil Aviation Organization.
Right, ICAO pronunciation.
Yeah.
The system prompt literally hard codes the phonetics. It says ICAO must be pronounced IKO.
And IATA is IAHTA.
Exactly. And FAA must be spelled out letter by letter.
It even controls the pacing of the delivery. The AI is told that flight level must be spoken in full on its first mention, and it can never be casually abbreviated to FL.
V1 is strictly V1.
Yeah, it's basically programming the AI to possess the cadence of a 20-year industry veteran.
But, as I read through this prompt, I hit a massive contradiction, and I really want to push back on the logic here.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, the prompt includes an uncompromising rewriting rule. It strictly forbids the AI from ever directly quoting or copying PDFs, textbook pages, or official aviation manuals.
Right, to avoid copyright strikes.
Right. It demands the AI completely rewrite highly complex concepts in its own words. But if you force a language model to paraphrase a dense aeronautical engineering manual, aren't you introducing a massive risk?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like, how does it avoid losing the exact technical precision required to explain something as critical as an ASDA calculation?
That's a great point. But the designers of the prompt clearly recognize that exact vulnerability.
Okay, so how do they solve it?
Because you're right, paraphrasing engineering manuals usually degrades the technical fidelity. So the prompt solves this through a really brilliant legal and educational workaround. It restricts the AI's real-world examples exclusively to public domain sources.
Meaning government investigations.
Precisely. The mandate forces the AI to anchor its rewritten explanations in official public domain accident reports.
Like NTSB or FAA advisory circulars.
Exactly. So if the AI needs to explain the consequences of a failed ASDA calculation, it doesn't try to creatively paraphrase a textbook. It pulls the exact, undeniably factual NTSB report of a specific flight that overran the runway.
Wow. Okay, that ensures the foundation is legally safe from copyright claims, but remains technically flawless and grounded in real-world operations.
Right. Okay, so the system solves for factual accuracy and copyright law simultaneously. But, having a legally compliant, highly accurate script doesn't mean a human student is actually going to sit there and listen to it.
No, not at all. Technical accuracy is entirely useless if the pilot just tunes out.
Exactly. So how does the system solve for human trust?
It solves for trust through extreme mandated consistency. The prompt outlines a voice mandate that is just incredibly rigid. All video content across every single language the Academy produces must feature a female voice.
Wait, hold on. Every single language.
Every single one.
Even in target markets or cultures where traditional authority figures in aviation are overwhelmingly male. Does the prompt explain the psychology behind completely ignoring those cultural norms?
See, the prompt doesn't frame it as ignoring norms.
Mm-hmm.
It frames it as establishing a universal baseline of instructional trust.
Okay, interesting.
The mandate specifies that this female voice must be calm, professional, and carry what it calls instructor-level authority. But here's the critical mechanism. The emotion style setting for the voice generation software must be set to absolute zero.
Zero emotion.
Zero. No dramatic exaggeration, no excitement, no salesman inflection whatsoever.
Wow.
By stripping away all emotional manipulation and enforcing a steady pace at 90 to 95% of natural human speed, the system bypasses cultural defenses.
It creates a bias-free, universally trusted educational environment.
Exactly. And for their audio-only formats and deep dives, the rule extends to require a female host with an inquisitive profile and a male expert who is calm and conversational.
And the prompt warns that changing this voice profile, quote, destroys brand identity.
Yeah, and they're scaling that brand identity globally. The document dictates a strict phase order for releasing this content. Phase 1 is English, targeting the global audience.
Right, then phase 2 moves into Turkish.
Which the prompt specifically identifies as a fast-growing, low-competition market.
Smart. Then phase 3 is Arabic, followed by Hindi, Spanish, French, and German.
But rolling out globally doesn't mean they're just, dumping the English script into a translation software. The prompt explicitly forbids literal translation. It mandates deep cultural adaptation.
The adaptation mechanics here are honestly fascinating. Think of it like a massive global coffee franchise.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. The architecture of the coffee shop in this case, that calm, authoritative female instructor's voice, is identical whether you walk into a branch in London, Istanbul, or Mumbai. You instantly recognize the brand.
But the menu perfectly matches the local palate.
Exactly. The prompt forces the AI to build that local menu. If it generates content for the Arabic market, it must physically account for right-to-left text direction in its visual prompts.
And if it's ready for Hindi, it's mandated to use the Devanagari script and directly reference the Indian aviation regulatory context, not the American FAA.
Right. For German translations, aligning the terminology with ES, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, is a hard requirement.
It's building an instructor who speaks with the exact same trusted voice everywhere, but possesses native-level understanding of local regulations.
Yeah. But here is where we reach the final and, frankly, most aggressive layer of this document.
Because delivering culturally accurate, authoritative content still fails if the student minimizes the window to watch something else.
Exactly. This brings us to the YouTube algorithm mastery section of the prompt.
This part changes how you look at online education entirely. The system is programmed to actively hack human attention spans using exact timestamps.
It calls this mechanism retention curve scripting. And I want you, the listener, to think about your own habits for a second. Think about the last time you went down a video rabbit hole learning about history or science or aviation. You likely experienced these exact mathematically calculated hooks without even realizing it.
The timeline forced onto the AI is ruthless. From second 0 to second 30, the AI must script a pattern interrupt.
The prompt strictly outlaws openings like, "Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel."
Yeah, none of that. The AI must open mid-action or deliver a high-stakes, surprising fact immediately.
Then, right at the 2-minute mark, the AI must deploy what the prompt calls a breadcrumb.
This is a retention checkpoint.
Right. The AI is instructed to script a promise into the dialogue saying something like, Later in the session, I'll show you a real-world case where misunderstanding an AR rep caused a massive delay at Heathrow.
And that 2-minute mark is not arbitrary at all. It is the exact statistical drop-off point where the YouTube algorithm monitors viewer abandonment.
The breadcrumb is a psychological anchor designed specifically to pull the viewer past that hurdle.
Then, at the 4-minute mark, the AI is required to inject a midpoint energy boost.
Which is like a new visual graphic or a deliberate change in pacing to wake the viewer back up.
Exactly. And finally, between minute 7 and minute 8.5, it delivers the highest retention moment.
This is the payoff.
Yeah. This is where the AI finally delivers the real-world operational scenario, like that public domain NTSB accident report we talked about earlier, rewarding the viewer for staying locked in.
The mathematical demands extend all the way to the packaging, too. The prompt includes a strict launch checklist for the first 48 hours of a video's life.
Oh yeah, the AI must design thumbnails with a target click-through rate, or CTR, of 8 to 12%.
And if that CTR falls below 4% in the first 2 days, the prompt demands the thumbnail be completely replaced.
And the shorts strategy is just as aggressive. The AI is required to write 3 short-form videos for every piece of main content.
The constraints are incredibly tight, right?
Super tight. A strict 75 to 90 word limit, exactly 1 isolated concept per short, and the hook must land in the very first second.
There is no intro, no branding, just an immediate impact on the user's dopamine receptors.
When you look at the entirety of this system, the calculated breadcrumbs, the click-through rates, the dopamine hooks,
it really forces a difficult question. Are we treating aspiring aviation professionals like algorithmic beta points?
that's a fair question.
Is this highly optimized, brilliant education, or is it just retention hacking designed to serve the YouTube machine?
It's an uncomfortable tension, but I would argue it's an exercise in brilliant pragmatism.
How so?
The designers understand human nature. It doesn't matter how critically important a concept like area navigation or ASDA calculations are to public safety. If you do not actively hold the modern human's fractured attention span, the learning never actually happens.
So the algorithm is just a delivery vehicle.
The algorithm is being used as a Trojan horse. The AI utilizes these aggressive clickbait mechanics and retention loops to get the student in the door.
Right.
But once they sit down, the payload inside that Trojan horse is a broadcast quality, technically flawless, legally compliant, bias-free aviation education.
A Trojan horse for high-level education. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's zoom out and summarize the journey we've taken through these sources today. We began by examining the rigorous, uncompromising rules of the sky.
We explored how the ASDA equation ensures an aircraft can safely abort a takeoff without running out of pavement.
We saw how the AOC acts as the legal license for an airline to exist, and how the AME performs the ultimate biological stress test on the pilots flying the planes.
We also looked at how systems like ARE and AIS create continuous feedback loops that prevent cascaded failures in the airspace.
Then we took those life-or-death operational frameworks and mirrored them against the rigorous rules of 2026 AI content generation.
We analyzed how a master system prompt serves as the air navigation order for digital production.
We broke down the mandated phonetic perfection, the clever use of public domain accident reports to bypass copyright while maintaining technical precision, and the localized cultural adaptations.
Finally, we dissected the retention curve scripting, the mathematical hooks and breadcrumbs that keep human viewers engaged with complex data.
It's honestly fascinating to see 2 distinct systems of ultimate precision, one physical, one digital, working in perfect synchronization.
It really is.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Because the implications go far beyond aviation.
They absolutely do. Nisam Aviation Academy is utilizing this incredibly precise, psychologically optimized AI system to teach objective facts. They're teaching things like runway calculations, radar operations, and global aviation laws.
Which are universally agreed upon measurable truths.
Right. But what happens when this exact same master blueprint is applied elsewhere? What happens when these forced retention loops, calculated breadcrumb promises, and universally trusted emotionless authoritative voices are programmed to teach subjective history?
Or politics.
Or ideology. If a system can perfectly reverse engineer your attention span to teach you about standard aviation acronyms, it can reverse engineer your attention span to teach you absolutely anything.
Yeah.
Just something to keep in mind the next time you find yourself entirely captivated by a video completely locked in until the final second. Are you learning, or is the system just confirming its compliance on your attention span?